Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Michael. I'm a digital security expert or a digital security professional, cybersecurity, dynamically engineered security, applications development, networking, and hardware consultant. And I have knowledge of all four fields of information technology. I'm about to present to you a project that I've been working on. As the application development side is something relatively new for me. However, I understand the concepts that go into it. That being said, let me go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to go ahead and put on some music. This is my website. This is all of the things that I am capable of doing in one form or another. Feel free to call or email me or call my office if you would like. The whole point of my company is to restore what a heightened sense of security actually means, because it does seem that many people, especially today, have no sense of it at all. And I'll get into that as I present this here, but what I want to get started with is the project that I've been working on. Okay, I'm going to turn that down a bit. All right, so what I've got here for you is my PowerShell ISE window on my server that I have remote connection to. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. Go away. Okay. What I have here is what's called the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. And what it does is it allows a business or organization or even just an independent person to deploy their Windows image or corporate enterprise structure. You may also know a program that is similar to this, which is basically the same thing, called SCCM. That's System Center Configuration Manager. These programs are effectively the same. SCCM just happens to have more flashing lights and bells and whistles. But other than that, there's really virtually no difference in the functionality of these programs. In fact, they can be designed, the MDT can be designed to be just as good, if not better, than SCCM. And I'll show you how that's even possible. First off, what I'm going to do here is, you see that my deployment share here is empty. I'm not going to open it because the script already does that. So I'm going to go ahead and run this script. I have to run it as administrator, which shouldn't be necessary, but maybe it's because it's in this ISE. Oh, that's why. It's looking for my client instead of my server script. So these are effectively going to be the same script. They are the same script until a certain point. But I have to modify the parameters, and that's not important right now. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I hit this button. It's going to run through all the images. It's going to update everything to the latest version of the images that I have stored on my network. What you're seeing right now is the DISM tool. What that's doing is it's concatenating 6 different images of Windows 10. That is the Windows 10 Home x86 version. That's the 32-bit version, as well as the 64-bit version. And it will do this for education and pro enterprise. Once it gets past the first 2 images, it actually flies right through because most of the files are the same, as you can see. Now it's going to inject all those task sequences in the operating system in MDT. If I do a refresh right now in MDT, which I don't think I can, maybe I can. There it is. There's my share. It's got all my information there. It's going to have the most up-to-date information. It's basically a live refresh of all the stuff that I have on my network. But anyway, I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what this is doing. What this is doing is it's basically taking this file right here, Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit, the pre-installation environment. What this is basically when you insert the installation image for Windows 10 or any other Windows for that matter, it loads into a pre-existing environment. It's otherwise known as PXE. Well, that's actually what PXE is short for. What that means is that it loads a very minimal baseline of drivers that will get your computer to be able to perform the restoration activities that your computer will need to perform in order to install Windows 10 or whatever installation you're currently installing. What this is doing right here is actually, it's very time consuming. And the reason for that is because these modules are all encrypted with a private encryption key that Microsoft has. I am developing a way around that does not require using disk copying. It also does not require virtual machine VMDK splicing or VHD splicing or even any of that. What I'm developing is a way to do this all from the applications themselves. And what this means is I'm developing a way to do what MDT is doing, and then also to incorporate what WDS will do. WDS, MDT stands for Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, in case those of you who are watching do not know what that means. And WDS stands for Windows Deployment Server. Up until several years ago, the only way to distribute Windows was to use Windows Deployment Services, which is a PXE executable. At some point within the past 8 or 9, maybe 10, 11 years, Microsoft released what's called the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. It works the same way that CSS would towards HTML. HTML is a rigid structure, and then CSS stylizes it. It is virtually the same concept that these two programs are doing with each other. As far as what I've developed here, I've developed a script that takes information that you input with a GUI that I will be building, or completing I should say, that asks you where certain folders and resources are located. This is how it's building the image right now, but I can tell you that all of this time that I'm sitting here waiting for this to occur, I could have already had this complete. I could have already been doing this with a virtual machine by copying it. But what you can't do is you can't update the actual base images in the virtual machine without doing a method without going through a method like this, which is effectively the same thing as sysprep. It's just a backwards way to go about doing sysprep, or the reverse of it. I guess it's the same one way or the other. The reason why this process takes so long is mainly because of the encryption. All of these files are encrypted. Every single one of them has some kind of encryption key that allows the process to be unamended. What that means is that you can't make changes to the operating system, and they designed it to be that way. There are a lot of good reasons for that, but there are a lot of terrible ones as well. The reason for that is if I want to know what any of these modules are doing, what services they're installing, what processes they're putting onto the target system, I can't investigate that. I can only investigate what is going into the module and what is going out of it, which that alone is enough to be able to figure out what most of the program is doing, but it's not enough to know everything. In fact, it's very easy to hide malicious code within encrypted files. That is my main concern in this day and age, is that there are companies out there that are making money off of people's ignorance. Case in point, the Computer Answers business that I have been working with in tandem. This is a business that makes money off of people's ignorance rather than trying to educate the customers. Ever since I started working with the company about 3.5 years ago, my motto has always been educate the customer and try to give them the best possible solution. Why? Because if you're trying to make money off of people's ignorance, you will not be in business for very long. In fact, it's kind of a miracle that this place happens to be in business, but I digress. It's not okay to try to rip off your customers and try to justify it by saying, oh, well, we need the money because we're a business and we need to keep raping people because we need to stay in business to keep raping people. That's basically what Microsoft does. I don't really have a very fond opinion of Microsoft in general. I don't think that everyone that works at Microsoft is a bad person. I just think that there are some things that have slipped through the cracks, and there are some discrepancies that I have with the company in general, especially their executives, who made a decision to pull the GitHub project that I was working on that would have basically made this whole process that I am explaining to you like that. What I'm about to do here is I'm going to launch a virtual machine. I'm going to create it right now in front of you so you see the variables that I'm putting into the system here. This is going to be no different than if I were to boot a computer from the network. Bridged mode, disable the printer, disable the CD-ROM because I will deploy over the network. I want to double check something. Alright, we're good there. So I'll get back to the point that I made in a moment once I get this process started here. I want to enable the time and the enhanced keyboard. Okay, so now this process starts. What this is going to do is it's going to load into the PXE WDS server using UEFI. There are some ways to make this part faster, but I am not quite ready to develop that yet. Now, I said something about Computer Answers. Computer Answers isn't exactly a bad company, but the owner is an incredible moron. And he and I have had to argue back and forth over many times over how much value I provided the company, how many times I had broken sales records, and how many times I went above and beyond for customers, and then also reduced the price of the invoices that the customers would have to pay. This guy, his father owns a business in a town not too far from where I am from. And his father has an entirely different business model. Basically, by taking care of your customers in the best way to save them time and money and frustration, people will always be willing to pay for the services you're providing. In fact, they'll go so far as to spread the good things that you do about your company to other people that they know. This is called word of mouth. But when you count on customers that come in and try to charge them 200% over the cost of a part or service that they could easily find and research and find online for themselves for a lot less than you're trying to sell it to them, that's pretty did I not change that one either? Yeah. All right. Something else I need to look at. Look at that. Okay. All right. So let me get back to my point. So when I talk about computer answers, I also talk about Microsoft. These two companies operate on a lot of the same principles of charging their customers over their ignorance of not knowing how to better do things. Case in point, I had a young gentleman who came in not too long ago, a few days ago. He wanted to buy a Galaxy Samsung S8. The owner told him, hey, that'll be $450. I wasn't even sure what to make of that, but I did the research. And that phone was going for about $275. Now, in a perfect world, you would never have to explain why your boss is an idiot or why your business partner is a retard. But, you know, I was unable to comply with the customer's request mainly because I found that situation to be rather unethical. The reason why I find things like that to be unethical is simply because if in a month that young gentleman felt that I had ripped him off, that young gentleman would never come back to my store. And that is very much what's happening to the company and other companies in general. Microsoft is aggregating what they can sell at Walmart. They can put refurbished laptops with a 1-year warranty on the shelves with all this crap software preloaded into it, and customers will buy it. Only because they don't have anywhere else to go. Only because these businesses these small businesses that I am referring to, they do what's called banging them over the head. That's not a good way to do business. It's actually a pretty foolish way to do business, and I have found a way to take all of the software that I am about to show you and turn it into a way to make it the most effective tool that will help sustain good business ethics. Now, define the words good business ethics. What that means is basically you can't have your cake and eat it too. What this means is that it's not okay for you to make people work for you, not pay them when the full amount of their paycheck, when they're owed that paycheck, and then to come up with excuses as to why you're paying them cash instead of the check value. This guy has done this for the past 3 years. Every single one of my tax returns is inaccurate, highly inaccurate, and I've thought about, following through with going to the labor board, because this guy owed me over $5,000 at one point. This guy has judged me, has belittled me, has basically made all of my input not important, has given me bullshit excuses like I'm focusing on something more important right now, while I've been running his business for him and generating him money so that he can continue to screw me and all of his employees and all of his customers. Well, let me tell you something. Not only have I developed this software in the past 3 months, not only have I learned how to do all of this within the past 3 months, but this right here is what you should have been doing 10 years ago. Why you weren't doing it, I don't know. Maybe because you don't know how to run a computer or technology business. And not only that, when you justify the means for doing something and then you continue to keep having excuses, then your means are totally invalid. If you think it's okay to send people to your businesses that you've overexpanded and cannot support your employees, what I mean is this. If you have a revolving door of employees, there is something wrong with your company or you, not the employees. The employees are probably trying to do something that actually does something good for the customers and for you, but you'd probably be too ignorant to understand what that even means. So, case in point here. Here's my program. It is installing Windows 10. Once this is done installing, it will put a shortcut on the desktop. It is a PowerShell script that I have written that basically does the same thing to Microsoft's product suite that I've explained about the owner of Computer Answers. It makes all of these pieces of software look incompetent, slow, stupid, and as if all of the engineering that went into it doesn't even matter. I am limited by the encrypted modules. I am also limited by the speed of my network hub here. However, if I were to have timed this against the clock, against the Microsoft creation, the media creation tool, if I were to have raced each of these two, it would be very similar, except this process right here is a completely clean install. And not only that, but it's incredibly malleable. So you can change, you don't have to make task sequences anymore in Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. You also don't have to, you don't have to import the operating systems into the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit GUI. You also, you get the best of both worlds, and you're still able to stay secure. until I come up with a way to encapsulate what the security principles in the operating system are doing. This part right here is the beginning setup, which you would see pretty much anyway if you did a clean or a reinstall. There are some positive sides to this whole method that I've developed. Methods that may not be easily seen. Methods that you may ask yourself, well, why would I do this if I can just use a virtual machine and do all this like that? Well, those virtual machines eventually they get corrupted. It doesn't matter if you're the most careful IT technician in the world or specialist. Someone will make a mistake somewhere and you'll have to rebuild the images. That's what this is doing. Instead of having to clone a drive and then add a whole bunch of programs and then sysprep it so that you can de-image it, basically, you can use this method, and once I am able to deploy the naked MDT deployment method, you won't have to create those task sequences or import the DISM modules into MDT and then export to WDS. No, what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to boot from the network. It'll be an option. You select it, you go into it, and then you can choose which image you want to install, kind of like this is already doing. But rather than to have all of that pre-calculated imaging take place, you'll have what's called the dynamic instructions, the dynamically executable instructions of these programs, the files, the scripts, the locations, the shares, the permissions, etc. That's basically what this is doing. This is what the PowerShell delivery will end up doing, is doing this in a much faster, much more open way than what is currently possible. The reason why things are the way they are right now is because it provides security of the end result product. However, what it also does is it protects the company, Microsoft, from actively exploiting all of its customers with location telemetry and data analysis and basically volume shadow copying. All of the things you do on your computers. Now that I'm in the end environment here, I'm going to go ahead and click yes. I'm going to close that. It's going to pop up with a box in a second here. Zero deployment issues. Oh, 11. Okay. Well, I think that's because I had changed the password and everything. But obviously you can see that worked. Funny, because I only changed it because I... you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go into... Oh, crap. That's what I forgot to change. Alright. I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to hit edit. It's not running as an administrator, but the script does auto validate. And if you're astute, you'll figure out how that is done by looking at that script right there. Oh, it is running as an admin. Well, that's good. So there's that. I'm just going to change this to the dark editor. Alright, that's more like it. So now, go ahead and hit that. Hit run selection. Alright. I will fix that right now. You know, it's probably a good thing that I am doing these things, because if I were to show you the passwords, that wouldn't be very secure now, would it? All right. Let's go ahead and try that again. It's going to install my certificates. It's going to install VMware. The progress indicator I need to work on, but basically this shows it shows that it's doing something. I just have to do more code and research to get it to line up properly with the process. Whew. So let's say you're deploying to a basic computer here. You wouldn't need to install VMware tools, you could just skip past this part. As you can see, information from my company, my logo. As you can see, Windows updates are already included. We'll hit that button again. There's usually one update that has to download anyway. Now what this is doing in the background is probably what you're focused on wanting to know. So now it's installing the default applications. There is a faster way to do all these things, but when you're deploying to customers, you don't want to do that. And I don't know why that came up. That was written out. So this will typically automatically install the drivers for your machine, no matter what machine it is. Yeah, that's code I'm gonna want. But yeah, as you can see, only those two. Rather a good thing here. And neither one of these needs a reboot, so that's good. That's AdBlock Plus. For whatever reason, that's not working, no matter how I code that. I'll probably just take that out. There are some errors that there are some errors that will show up. Errors that I have not written around yet. But that's okay. The rest of the process is working pretty well, and as I will show you. Oh, and just so you're aware, if I go into File Explorer, wow, look at how small that drive is. 12 gigs? Really? You can't install Windows on that. Can you? I don't know. I don't know if you can. I've never met anyone that could do that. So the programs that it's installing are Google Chrome, Adobe Air, Adobe Flash, Adobe Reader, Silverlight, um, 7-zip, Java Runtime Environment 8, K-Lite Codec Pack, Malwarebytes, TeamViewer. I think there's one more that I'm missing here. Oh, CCleaner. So those are all the programs that get automatically installed, as you're seeing right now. There are even ways to make this part of the process even faster as well. Oh, by the way, you'll be able to see what programs are getting installed as the desktop icons get put there. Now, MDT can do all of this stuff. I'm not saying that you can't, but the process is a little bit more strict. I'm not even entirely sure whether you'd have to rebuild the base image or not. Now, the rest of the programs are pretty quick, and then it's going to reboot at the end. I like to use Robocopy because it shows the status of all the things that I want to see. You could do many of these things with Xcopy. Man, why am I yawning so much? It's got to be this chair. The chair's too comfortable. This is the last program right here. So what I have installed is a base applications template. And installed certificates and updated drivers and checked Windows Update. And if I ever have to update these programs, then that's pretty simple to do. It doesn't require editing any task sequences whatsoever. So it's supposed to load up the start menu that I came up with and the user profile import script. But basically, everything that you see in this video is what you need in order to get a deployable VHD for an organization. I'm not even sure how long that was. About a half an hour. That's for the server build and for the client end. It's pretty good. Anyone watching this video that has experience with the software that I've been using knows how much of a pain in the ass it is to do all the things that I did. At least to keep it up to date. Look at that. That's what I was after. Excuse me. I gotta update this, but yeah, this can all be updated on the fly. And even though this is an unactivated version of Windows 10, see that my background is right there. I could change the default background, but I'd rather not do that. But this concludes the video. So hopefully you enjoyed watching this and that you learned something. There's definitely a lot more to go as far as what I desire out of this process. But what you have effectively seen is both the server and the client computer. Both updated, both up to the latest version possible and with the latest applications possible, and customized to an extent that it does your OEM branding. Okay. And there you have it. This video is complete. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to give me a call or visit my website.